Que pasa, mi amigos? Nima here, and today we're going to talk about Prinny presents NIS Classics Volume 2, Makai Kingdom Reclaimed and Unbound, ZHP, Unlosing Ranger vs. Dark Death Evil Man, and yes, that is the title. So this is from the people who brought us the Disgaea series, and some of the characters do overlap. I've never got into the Disgaea series before, only because, honestly, I felt like there was a lot of homework to do with them. There's so many characters, they're all interlinked, and when you start to play one, you start to realize, like, I should have been playing the first one, the second one. There's a story there that I'm not aware of, and you can definitely tell that. So I was a little apprehensive about playing this one, be it that I have zero experience with it. And I was pretty happy to figure out that you didn't need any backstory. You didn't need any knowledge of characters, because it is its own story. And yes, there are some characters you kind of recognize, or at least one specifically, but that doesn't matter. It's its own game. So at its heart, this is definitely a love story, but there's a long time before you get to that. As you start off the game, you are Lord Zeta, most powerful overlord, and you're told that you need to retrieve a book from this library, or your whole kingdom will essentially be brought to oblivion. As you're going through there, you discover that someone has been stalking you, a powerful foe by the name of Raiden. He destroys you, and essentially turns you into a book. You are then tasked with trying to rebuild your kingdom, your netherworld, and you're given only a few options on how to do this, but essentially you have to rely on other overlords and your own creations. And this is where the game kind of gets cool, because you start creating your own characters and their own names and their own, plot lines, if you will. And I kind of really dig that aspect of the game. And each time you go through, you're like battling to bring just a little bit more of an aspect to your world. So it's like literally world building, as you're getting hospitals and shops and all sorts of stuff that you can bring back to your world, and helping Lord Zeta recreate his netherworld. Interacting with the other overlords is 100% a necessity, as you need their help to bring back your mana, bring back your strength. And later on, this is really where the story really takes shape. Not so much with the characters that you've created, they're just kind of chess pieces to you, but the interactions between the overlords, and especially with Zeta himself. I have to also say one thing about the story, the dialogue, the writing. It's done really well. I really appreciate a game that speaks like normal people, and there's many instances where you can see that Lord Zeta is speaking as just a normal person would, even though he is an overlord, which does bring about a few questions, I think. For me, the star of the show is definitely the gameplay. It's a tactical RPG where it runs like many of the other ones that we're familiar with. The only difference, and the biggest caveat I would say, is that when you create these characters, you get attached to them. You have a sort of a tie to them, because you made them and named them essentially, and decide what role they're going to be. Some of that is kind of predetermined, but in other ways you also do control like what kind of style they're going to fight as. And I love a good tactical RPG, and this one is done really well. I will say it is very difficult and does require a lot of grinding. Like, that's going to be one of the big things that you do, is you're going to go through a couple chapters and then go back and replay all those chapters so that you can gain more money, you can gain equipment. There's a lot of things in this game that you're going to need. And the thing is like, everything you do does require money. All of your healing and restoring all requires money, so you're going to need a ton of it, not to mention the fact that you can keep creating a lot of characters, and you're going to need a lot of characters, all of which do require equipment, which is going to require money. But leveling up and equipping the right equipment will only get you so far in this game, as you need to really focus on your tactics, not only in tandem with other characters, but how you see the entire battle map, which is brought out before you in different forms. You can discover some of it by checking for keys, what they call it, and once you discover it, it opens up the map even more, and there's more enemies to fight. And there is the option to kind of quit early. Once you reach a certain score, you're given the option to basically finish up the chapter, or you can keep going. I always choose to keep going and clear the stage so that I can get more levels, I can get more money. I'm gonna need that stuff anyway. Graphically, I would say this game is pretty on par with what the original one was. In fact, I kind of went back and looked at the original release, and most of it looked the same, even down to the voice acting and all that. This seems to be pretty much just a straight port, but it runs really well. And it's definitely one of those games that really hold up on the Switch. Like, it just looks great for it. It doesn't need to be overly flashy, and that's part of what these kind of tactical RPGs will give you, as well as having like that anime style. You don't have to have super dynamic clarity and HD graphics and stuff like that. No, this is definitely one of those games though that I will say is for the hardcore. Like, the retro aspect of it also comes in the form of difficulty as well. Like, people will talk about Triangle Strategy or Shin Megami Tensei 5. Any of those, they really don't hold a candle to how difficult this game can be. You know, it's not inaccessible, it's just, it requires a lot of grinding, and it requires you to try multiple options, as well as just building up your characters and getting to know them, and to see what skills they're going to obtain and how you can best utilize them against your enemies. I will say that ultimately I'm glad I played this game. I've had a lot of fun with it, and it's one that would have completely passed me by, but definitely one of those games that really grew on me. The story starts to really take shape, and I don't want to give too much away, but I will say, like, it kept me engaged, and I was very curious about how it ended. I like the fact that it was playful yet serious, and I like how you didn't have to know anything about the game or the game's characters going into it, which is, like I said, one of my issues with the Skya games is it just seems like you have to know so much. It builds upon so much. I really like it. I think it's definitely worth it. I would probably argue that you could wait for a sale because these games always go on sale, but it's definitely worth it, especially if you're into that style of gaming and you're also into like retro gaming. It's the perfect match. A lot of people slept on it and missed it, but yeah, it gets really high reviews, and there's a good reason for that. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it. I didn't really review the ZHP because that whole thing is essentially like a big graphic novel. It's kind of a bonus they put in there. There is a battle in there, I believe. Yeah, and whatever, it's cool, but it's not really like worth focusing on. It's a good bonus, you know, kind of like what we've gotten with the Chrono Cross recently. There's definitely there, and like the fandom will definitely enjoy it, but for the average person, it's kind of a lot of reading, if I'm being honest. I will say, if you're a fan of the tactical RPG style, or you're obviously a fan of the series, this is a must play. Like, this is a must pick up. It's a lot of fun. You won't regret that. But if you stayed this long, I would really appreciate if you guys could like, subscribe, do all that stuff. I truly appreciate it. We're working on 300. We'll get there. We'll definitely get there. But like always, I'm wishing you guys health, wealth, and above all, I hope you're really happy. Love you guys.